I want to talk to you about a protest movement happening right now in Nigeria that has some comparisons to some of the social movements that have been sweeping across America all throughout this year. Joining us now to give us all the details is the founder and CEO of the 1954 Equity Project, professor of education at the Johns Hopkins University, and the star of Real Housewives of the Potomac, Dr. Wendy Osefo. Welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you for having me.
Very glad to have you here. So this hashtag EndSARS movement that's been going on, I have a feeling that many of our viewers in the United States probably are not very familiar with this. So what is this all about?
So EndSARS is a direct, I would like to say, affirmation against the police department, a special unit within the police department of Nigeria. In the police department, they have an anti-corruption unit. And this unit is basically terrorizing the youth. Their job is not to do that, of course. Their job is not to harm anyone, but they are using their badge as a way in which to police the youth, kidnap them, torture them, and murder them. So right now there's an uprising going on in Nigeria that is calling for the Inspector General of the police to not only disband SARS as far as the department, but then to give them tangible actions moving forward on how they're going to address police brutality within the country.
And so this, the things that you're talking about, the torture, kidnappings, murder, and things like that, this has been going on for some time now, and it's well documented.
Absolutely. There have been multiple cases of youth, of Nigerian citizens who have been abducted, who have been tortured, who have been murdered, who have been killed. We even see this happening on camera. This is not something that's happened, behind doors in some back alley. There is videotape evidence of this unit in the police department harming Nigerian citizens. And just to give you a little bit of backstory here, they say, when they are then probed, why are you doing this? They are then saying that they're identifying these individuals as criminals. And then you ask them further, why are they criminals? They say because they dress well, because they have an iPhone. And for us Americans, that might sound a little bit bizarre, but in a country that suffers from a high rate of poverty like Nigeria, when they see people with these materialistic things, they automatically equate that to someone who is up to no good or who is doing bad things within society. But that's not true. So just because you see a youth with an iPhone, just because you see a youth dressed nicely does not give you, the ability to sit there and harass them, kill them, torture them, and kidnap them. By all means, that is inhumane.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem like, in theory, seeing young Nigerians, having this conspicuous consumption would be a sign that things are working well, hypothetically, but they don't seem to think to see it that way. A little bit of context for American viewers. Well, I believe the median age in the US is like something like 39 years old. In Nigeria, apparently, it's just 19. It is a very young population, and from what I've seen, it seems like this is a youth-led social movement. Why is it in particular that it's younger people being targeted? Is there some explanation for that?
So Nigeria has had a history of corruption, a history of impulsive political parties. And why I'm tying that into the question and what you're asking is that young Nigerian youth have seen this within the country. They have heard stories. I was born in Nigeria. I came to this country when I was fairly young. And I have heard stories from my aunts, my uncles, my parents about the ways in which the government has harmed them, has stymied their growth. So now we see Nigerian youth saying, hold on, you did this to our parents. You did this to our parents' generation. And we are not going to allow you to do this any further. And that's why I think this movement, the EndSARS movement, is really being corralled by youth, because we have seen the damage a corrupt society, a corrupt government has had on our country. We are not saying that we want EndSARS to just be the beginning. No, we're saying that we are not taking abuse any longer. That us as youth in Nigeria refuse to let the government preclude us from all of the greatness that we can have as the next generation in the country. So I am proud of the youth for taking this stance, because the government has really robbed the country for far too long.
While acknowledging that these protests are still, in their developing phases, I after seeing months and months of the Black Lives Matter protests in cities across America, we've seen that here in America, it's led to a lot of people seemingly getting to understand the problem a little bit more. But a lot of state and local governments, the federal government certainly, don't seem, even after 6 or so months, to really have changed their position at all. And we've seen protesters being brutalized all over the country. So far with the EndSARS protests, what is the reception like in terms of the police reaction, the government, society? How is it being viewed so far?
Well, they're not letting up. The youth are not letting up. And I don't believe that the government was expecting it to last this long. When you come from a history of a country where there have been movements, and even the great musician Fela Kuti, he wanted to start a movement against the government. A lot of people didn't back him. So the government was probably expecting a few youths to come, rise up, and then it'll be quelled. This movement is just getting started. They're saying we're not going to stop. And I think that the police, the government is taking notice. I also think it's important that a lot of Nigerians who are making waves both at home and abroad are also speaking out against this, bringing attention to this, whether it's musicians like Davido, Tiwa Savage, Wizkid. These are people who have platform. And that's another thing that we have to speak to. Whether we look at the EndSARS movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, there is a special ingredient here, and that is social media. The ways in which these movements have been propelled beyond their borders. When it was Black Lives Matter here in the United States, the same people who are saying EndSARS in Abuja were saying Black Lives Matter there and chanting George Floyd's name. So we are seeing a direct switch now that here we are in the United States saying EndSARS. So it has been really an awakening for the Nigerian government. And I think that they know that they have to do something besides giving the youth lip service, because it has to end now.
That is just really amazing. The idea that this victim of police brutality here would be inspiring people in other countries is just amazing. Amongst all of this bad stuff that's happening, it's a little bit heartwarming, at least to see that. In terms of the response to it, I know that especially youth-led social movements in some countries have faced internet crackdowns and restrictions, as well as violence. Have we seen either of those two so far?
It's starting. It's been bubbling up. There have been reports of that on Twitter. I don't have any necessary data to substantiate that, but there have been people who have tweeted that there have been things going on. I do know once protesters are arrested or they're apprehended, the first thing they do take is their cell phones. There's no irony to that because they know that cell phones are the medium to which people communicate. But again, it's grown like wildfire. And while they might try to, arrest a handful here and there, the magnitude for which people are aware of what's going on is not going to allow for this movement to be stopped.
Okay, and so supposedly the Nigerian government is saying that they're going to have this new special weapons and tactics team to possibly replace that. Is that actually a substantive change? Is that just an attempt to diffuse the protests?
That is an attempt to change the name to think that we will believe the smoke and mirrors. So now it's the hashtag has also been added, which is EndSWAT, which is the unit you just mentioned. Because what Nigeria has a history of doing is that when they disband these different units, they just take those same officers and place them in different places, and they continue on the same behavior in which caused the first unit to be disbanded. So that's why the Nigerian youth have said, yes, thank you for saying that you will technically end SARS, but you will start another one. But that's not what we want. We don't want lip service. We don't want you to change the name and then these officers continue to terrorize, abduct, and murder people. We want there to be systematic reform within the police department. That's what we want. We want to see real change, not a name change.
Yeah, shuffling bad cops around rather than actually reforming the system. That's another thing that we have in common between the two countries.
Absolutely.
So finally, for someone who might be watching this that wants to track these protests going forward, are there any individuals or media outlets that you trust to deliver accurate information about the situation on the ground in Nigeria?
Absolutely. I would say, make sure you follow Amnesty International. They're doing a great job, really tracking this. I will also say there is a document on change.org that talks about petitions and talks about ways in which you can help donate. Nigerians, they are super passionate people. but right now they may lack different resources. So if it's just, finding a way to connect with them to donate cases of water, to help donate, megaphones, or even if you are not able to have that connection, but just having a big platform so you can amplify the conversation around the EndSARS movement and bring a level of attention to it, all of those things help. I have cousins who have been protesting since 3 a.m. today. They're not stopping. They're continuing to hit their boots on the ground because they want to see real change. So any and all help is appreciated at this time.
Dr. Wendy Osefo, thank you for joining us. And by the way, for being an example of using your platform to draw attention to it. We really do appreciate that.
Thank you so much.